Chase Brown and Bucky Irving are quickly becoming weekly top 5 plays. We dig into our quarterback and running back rankings for week 14 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. We're here for you every day, Monday through Friday, helping you win your fantasy football leagues. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com.
Enjoy the NFL season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, like we do every Tuesday. Today Wednesday, not Tuesday.
Yeah.
Like we do every Wednesday. We start our positional ranking. So we start with our running backs and quarterbacks today, get into our wide receivers and tight ends tomorrow. Let's start right at the top for our running backs. Saquon Barkley, obviously, number one, because this man has been amazing this year and he gets the Carolina Panthers. He might score 60 points. Who knows? But that's an obvious number one. We both have Alvin Kamara in our top three. I have him at 2. You have him at 3. But we also both have Chase Brown in our top 3. He's just been moving up slowly each week. We just keep creeping him up there, right? But he gets a really nice matchup against the Cowboys. Talk about Chase Brown, Vinny.
Yeah, I said earlier a few times that he feels like the new Austin Eckler, right? He looks like him a little bit when he runs. He scores a lot. He's on the field. He started out as a receiving back, but then kind of Zach Moss went into that role, and then they trusted Chase Brown as a power back. And all of a sudden, Moss goes down, and they have to expand Chase Brown's role, and he's responded really well, and this offense has exploded. We know that Joe Burrow is having an MVP-like season for a losing team. The offense, there's nothing wrong with the offense in Cincinnati. They're moving it. They're in position to score often. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, these are the main guys it goes through, these 3 guys with Joe Burrow. So there's a lot of scoring, a lot of yardage involved with these players, and as long as Joe Burrow is playing well, there's no end to what Chase Brown can do in any given game with his touches. And you look at the matchup this week, Monday Night Football, it's against the Cowboys. Cowboys were terrible early against the run. They got a little bit better, but it doesn't really matter. It's just what team is still motivated here. I mean, the Cowboys are kind of alive in the playoff picture, but I think the Bengals really need to keep putting in that good effort. Again, the defense is the question for the Bengals. Offense, I have no question that they're pouring it out there, and I think they'll be ready for that Cowboys matchup all around. It's good for him, both as a runner and receiver this week.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a top 10 running back in each of the last 4 weeks, 5, 3, 10, 10. Since Zach Moss got injured, he's gotten 85% of the Bengals rush attempts since week 9. Only player with 79% of their team's rushing attempts during that span. Like his workload is just insane. So continue to trust him in a super high ceiling this week. Now, another guy that's been killing it, who we both have ranked high this week as well, is Bucky Irving. I have him at running back 5. You have him at running back 6. He gets the Raiders. I mean, he has been on fire. Running back 1 and running back 3 over the last 2 weeks. And then prior to that, running back 7. But the Buccaneers had that week 11 bye. And then coming out of the bye, they've been giving Bucky Irving so many touches. He gets 25 carries last game. There's no reason that they take those away because he's been so good with them, right? So Irving's going to get all the touches in a great matchup, and he's just been so efficient.
Yeah, we have all those running backs on buys, but the guys that are touching the ball a lot and playing this week all seem to have great matchups. And Barkley is as good as it gets against the Panthers. You have Alvin Kamara. That's a great matchup as well this week. And then you dive in to James Cook, red hot from last week. He gets the Rams. Bucky Irving right up there with these guys and can really produce against the Raiders, who still stink against the run. They're not very good in that aspect. I know it was a little bit choppy for the Chiefs because they kind of were working out their split a little bit with Isaiah Pacheco back in the mix last week, but they've been terrible against the run, the Raiders. So I would expect the Buccaneers to also play with the lead in this game. They really were going back and forth a little bit with the Panthers, and even in that game script, Irving touched the ball a lot. So this could be really good for him to punch through And I think he's going to at least score again. I mean, Rachaad White, I still think he's playable for some people that are desperate with the bye because, again, they are giving him some work as well. They're trying to maybe recreate what they have with Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery in their own way in Tampa, and it might be working. Like Irving is kind of the power finishing guy. Rachaad White has a little bit of receiving juice, so it's working really well. The big thing that's happening is the Buccaneers' offensive line has been really good blocking, and I think they'll push the Raiders out of the way this week.
We agree on Devin Achane, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Kyron Williams, James Cook, Josh Jacobs. They're all inside our top 10 each. Like they're going to be in your lineups, no questions asked. But one guy we are not so equal on this week is James Conner. You have him as your running back 10 this week against the Seahawks. I have him down at running back 17, and I'm not even sure if I don't have him too high. So why are you so high on Conner this week? The last 2 weeks, he's been running back 27 in both of those weeks. Just have not seen the production from him in week 12 when he played the Seahawks. Only had 7 fantasy points.
Yeah, I look at this, and really the Cardinals are two teams. They're a road team, and they're away or a home team. That's a lot different. When they're back in their home stadium, they all of a sudden have this great rushing attack that can dominate. And the Seahawks are not good against the run. They just aren't. They've had some breaks here in the last few weeks with who they faced, but they are still not a very good run defense. And again, the Cardinals, for some reason, just playing in Arizona with Jonathan Gannon and also Drew Petzing, it just seems to be a better fit for them. And Connor's typically been very good at home also. So it's a very weird thing going on. It seems like they're two different teams where Kyler Murray can't get out of his own way and they can't do anything running the ball. And then you have some flashes in the passing game, but nothing consistent there. But then they get home, they dominated on the ground. They had that one game where everyone went off, like James Conner and Trey Benson. I know that was against the Bears, but again, they just seem to be more comfortable doing everything, blocking, running, tackling, and you name it here. So weird team for sure, but maybe just a sign of being a young team that's trying to put it all together.
We also both have Tony Pollard inside our top 12. He had a terrible game last week. It's actually 3 of the last 4 weeks have not been good games, but if the Titans can keep a game close, like Tony Pollard's going to have a good game. And Jacksonville's not going to have Trevor Lawrence, right? They're going to have Mac Jones. You expect at least that the Titans can keep this game close like they did against Houston a couple weeks ago. And that's when Tony Pollard had 20 fantasy points because of his 24 carries. They got blown out last week. There just wasn't a chance for Pollard. But in this matchup, we like him again. But two guys actually, we do not have inside our top 12 that we've not mentioned is both Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, who, they have been struggling. And I guess Kenneth Walker's been a little bit more consistent than Breece Hall, but both of them make me worried, and we both have them outside our top 12 this week.
Yeah, my concern about Breece Hall is that his strength of catching the ball hasn't really been used a lot. I thought with Todd Downing taking over that they would actually look at Breece Hall and the skill set and make him the centerpiece of the offense, but maybe it's just dysfunctional all around. And this is maybe the fallout of that they just don't know what to do with their best players and put them in position to succeed with this group. And that's happened with Garrett Wilson. They should not have trouble scheming him open if Devontae Adams is on the field. Then Hall, like, how do you not use him in the passing game as much? So when you take that element away, and we've seen that with any back, if you're relying just on the rushing yardage, you need that touchdown to come through. So you got Breece Hall because he can do that. And Kenneth Walker, look, he's staying afloat because he catches a few balls, so that helps. And the yardage hasn't been there, and you're counting on the touchdown. But then when Zach Charbonnet steals it last week, then you don't have a good day for Walker. So I think these guys should be better than they are. Maybe it's a product of their usage a little bit. Walker's been better in a lot of weeks, so I'm not too concerned with him that he's still the lead guy. Like, I haven't seen much demotion, and when he gets going, he's just kind of a boomer bust guy, right? He'll put together 2 touchdowns and slap together 80 yards from scrimmage all of a sudden, or he'll go away. So he's just a little bit inconsistent, where Breece Hall is just a mysterious situation here where I don't know why they're not using him. Look, the Dolphins can be had against the run, but I still can't totally trust Breece Hall. I just have to play him. And you got to play Walker because, again, it's a bye week. these are guys that are getting touches. You just have to play and hope for the best, and that's always a hard situation in fantasy.
Now, one guy I have ahead of both Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker is Rico Dowdle. And I never thought that was going to happen entering this season. So we're going to dig into the rest of our running back rankings, including where I have Rico Dowdle, right after we take a quick break. This episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you're paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan, and you get to keep your phone number along with your existing contacts. So it's super easy to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month. Go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. $45 upfront payment required. New customers on first the 3-month plan only. Speeds slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
This episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made accessible to all. It's the best place to get real money sports action with more than 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. All you have to do is just pick or more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long only on Prize Picks. It is really very fun to play. Again, you just go for the more or less on your players here on Locked On Fantasy Football on Friday show. We go with our mores because we're a fantasy show, but you can always go less. And you can now win up to 10 times your money with just a couple picks, and you can do 100 times your money if you get 4 correct picks. And there's also the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So that's good to have that little bit. Mulligan, they also have that injury insurance there. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live and ready to win there. So check it out. Download the app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONFL. You'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineups. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Michelle, let's talk about Rico Dowdle because that's the hot topic. I guess he's on the other side of this Chase Brown matchup. So what do you expect out of him against the Bengals, who have actually become better against the run than they were? They were atrocious early in the year.
Yeah, listen, Rico Dowdle, since the team finally was like, okay, yeah, Ezekiel Elliott has no business being a big part of our offense. Like, Dowdle is clearly the better running back, and they started giving him all the work. He's been great. He's been the running back 5 and the running back 16 over the last 2 weeks. He has 47 touches over those last 2 weeks, third most in the NFL behind only Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs. He's getting so much work, and he's looking good doing it, right? Last week, he get 22 carries, 112 yards, and a touchdown. He can be used as a receiver too. So like if they get down by the Bengals a lot, like he will still get that work in that area. We've seen him be used near the goal line as a receiver as well. So I expect Rico Dowdle to get 20 touches in this game. It's not a scary matchup. Like you said, the Bengals have been a little bit better, but you can still beat them. So I just think Dowdle, when it comes to his workload and his talent, he's a good play this week.
Yeah, and he should enjoy his time as the feature back here, and because I don't think it'll last next year, they finally have to look at kind of a rookie back the same the way they got Ezekiel Elliott several years ago. So Dowdle is maybe playing for a job elsewhere, right? If they clean some things up in Dallas. So he needs to look good. And they've also compressed the offense quite a bit, right? With Cooper Rush. It's more like the shorter passes. We saw with Brandon Cooks in his return. It's the shorter passes used in red zone. We see that a lot with the little dumps to Luke Schoonmaker. So again, everything is shorter. So I think the way Dowdle gets it done, and that's why I'm a little lower this week. I don't think he's going to have a lot of rushing success. I also think this game could get out of hand for the Cowboys, but I think he can make up for it with a little check downs, potential score there. So that's maybe the difference where we have him in the rankings. I have him a little bit lower at 21, but that usually those 8 spots or those 6 points, right? If that touchdown happens or not. But I still like him. I still think you have to play him as an RB2, and that's where I think he is the rest of the way. It's just going to be how varied we are in the matchup.
Yeah, and there's 2 more guys that we agree on. I guess we're a little bit different on Dottle, but I think overall you agree that you play Dottle this week. But 2 other guys, David Montgomery, we don't really need to discuss. He's my 12. He's your 13. Like, he's been consistent. You plug him into your lineup. DeAndre Swift, on the other hand, he's fallen back off, right? Like, he started terribly, then he got super hot, and now he's fallen off a bit. But he gets a really nice matchup against the 49ers, and I have him at running back 15. You have him at 16. I think he needs to be in people's lineups. With your 6 spies, right? You're going to need these running backs. And I know 3 of the last 4 weeks have been really, really bad for Swift, but this matchup is way too good to ignore. The 49ers cannot stop the run all of a sudden. And I just like the 49ers right now are just a train wreck. They're going to be able to be ran against this week.
Yeah, and even if he doesn't do the running, I think you're going to look at DeAndre Swift catching some passes. I mean, they've actually had another offensive coordinator change because Thomas Brown had to take over head coaching duties, but still that system was going to be in play, and then Caleb Williams has played really well. So that opens up everything as well. I like Caleb Williams actually this week. We'll talk about that. But yeah, the 49ers pass defense is broken, so that also helps Swift. I know they have Fred Warner, but they haven't been really shutting down a lot in terms of running backs getting work and checkdowns and all that. So DeAndre Swift, however you look at it, if they're in the game, they're close with the 49ers, he'll get the carries. If they fall behind, he'll catch passes and make up for it that way and be effective. So I love it, but I think I like the running back on the other side a lot more, and I was very happy that I landed him in waivers this week. I didn't need him, but I'm very happy I got him. I have Isaac Guerendo at 14. How high do you have him this week?
I'm at 21, just because I don't fully know what the workload they're going to give him. I don't know. Like, it doesn't seem like Trent Williams is going to be back, not only because of his injury, but, he has some personal, really sad stuff going on there. So this offensive line might be a bit banged up, and this whole team is banged up and a disaster right now. That's my only worry with Isaac Guerendo. He should get a ton of volume, though, and that's great. But they're really struggling in the red zone, even with Christian McCaffrey. Didn't have any touchdowns when he played this year in his 3.5 games. So it's just hard to envision Guerendo getting those. But he got one last week, so who knows?
Yeah, the Bears stink against the run. I mean, they should not have been that close against the Lions. I mean, they were just dominating them. I know it was the Lions, best offensive line, best running back combination, but the 49ers are not slouches running the ball, right? Even with their injuries last week. I mean, we had that unfortunate Christian McCaffrey injury, but before that, he was just tripped up where he would have had a long touchdown. And Guerendo has a lot of speed, and I think the Bears struggle with some speed backs as well. So I'm very high on Guerendo. I think he's a must start going forward. I mean, he's the leader of this 49ers backfield, and we know any back that starts for the 49ers is worth it in fantasy. I don't care what the state of their team is. Kyle Shanahan will figure out a way to run the ball. And they, again, I said they need to see what Guerendo can do given the futures of McCaffrey and Mason.
One ranking I was pretty shocked by you is how low you have Najee Harris.
Yeah.
Like, it's at running back 23, which if there was no teams on bye, then okay, maybe. But with 6 teams on bye, him still being that low, you have him behind guys like Travis Etienne, Rachaad White, and like Najee Harris for over the last half of the season, he's had really, really solid weeks, right? It's been running back 9, 15, 17, 18, 18. He had one down week a couple weeks ago and then back up to running back 3 this last week. So I have him more in that range of, I'm trying to find him right now. I have him at running back 18. I think that's a fair range for him, but 23 behind Travis Etienne. Explain that.
I just don't love this matchup. I know the previous matchup he scored, or Jalen Warren actually scored in the previous matchup last week. Warren took a back seat. I just don't like this backfield. It seems a little bit all over the place a little bit, and you could just have such a disappointing game from either or both of these guys. And the Browns have been pretty good against the run. You look at the numbers last week, and Javonte Williams scored, but he didn't do anything else. And Drew McLaughlin, like, I don't know how it's going to work between Warren and Harris this week. So I think you beat the Browns through the air and then make those big plays, and that's what they're going to have to do here because the Browns still have some pride. They're coming out and stopping the run pretty well. So I think the power run with Harris is going to be a little disappointing. I do like Warren in this game a little bit more, just based on the way the Browns are built with their front seven.
Interesting. Yeah, it felt like Warren was like barely on the field this last week. Cordero
Yeah,
Patterson got a lot more work than
yeah.
him, and they're using Najee a lot in the middle of the field for those receptions. I would love to see them keep doing that. That would be great. One last question for you here. We got the Chiefs running backs, right? Isaac Pacheco and Kareem Hunt both disappointed in week 13 while playing together. They both got exactly 7 carries. Hunt got the targets in the game, but didn't catch any. He had 4 targets, 0 receiving yards on those 2 receptions. But would you go Pacheco or Kareem Hunt against the Chargers or Rashad White against the Raiders?
Yeah, I don't like the way this Chiefs backfield is going because it didn't really just have Pacheco back and he took it over. Like there was still Hunt, and then there was a little bit of Samaje Perine getting involved. Like I don't know what's going on here, but maybe they're being careful because they're the Chiefs. And they want to save Pacheco for the playoffs, where he was awesome last year, and maybe they're being careful, right? I mean, it makes a lot of sense. These games don't mean as much for the Chiefs, even if they fall to the number 2 seed. They proved it didn't matter last year what seed they are, so they want to keep their main guys healthy, and I think that's probably coming into play a little bit now with Kansas City and trying to think about the playoffs. So with Rashad White, again, the Raiders matchup is just so good. And I know like he has a certain amount of touches he's going to get with Bucky Irving. So I just like the Buccaneers offense in general, scoring a lot of points, where I don't see the Chargers Chiefs game being a very high scoring game. And you're going to have to do it through the air based on how good both run defenses are.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd go with Rashad White among that group too. White, like, it's not the highest of ceiling because he's not going to get a ton of touches, but he could still score. He could still see enough in this Raiders matchup. All right, it's time to transition to our quarterback rankings. Some hard decisions this week. The top is feeling really great, and then after that, it's a lot of guys with risk but high rewards. So we'll get into that in just a moment after a quick break. Tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. FanDuel can truly make any game interesting and more exciting. One bet that I'm liking, if you want to place your first bet, it's on the Packers Lions game tomorrow night. The Packers getting +3.5. Now I know they're on the road, but the Lions defense has a lot of injuries right now. So I do think the Packers are a sneaky bet there. Again, Packers +3.5 points against the Lions. To get started, just join FanDuel. You visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. And never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Hopping in to our quarterback rankings for week 14, we actually have the same top 5 quarterbacks, slightly different order, but my top 5 goes Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, and then Kyler Murray. Yours goes Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. Now, a lot of these are self-explanatory, right? Like they've been great, or like Baker has such a good matchup. Kyler Murray, though, on the other hand, he has not been so good. And we thought coming out of the bye, like, oh my goodness, amazing matchups against the Seahawks and the Vikings. Didn't get it done. Why is he going to get it done this week? Are we too high on him?
Yeah, I was wondering what to do with him this week, and going behind the process. Some of it is gut, and some of it is like looking at how the game could go and the flow of the game. Now, I did mention the Cardinals are a good running team at home. Kyler Murray needs to get touchdowns to really be effective, and Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr., he needs a little bit of Michael Wilson to get those touchdowns through the air. he's not really doing a lot of running there in the red zone that we would like. But I just feel like looking at the options on the table, I mean, the Seahawks are not in this shutdown defense. They did win kind of an ugly, low-scoring game just a couple weeks ago, but that was in Seattle. I think it changes a bit. You don't have the weather to worry about. The Cardinals need this win. I think they'll be motivated. So Murray typically plays well when he's got a little chip on his shoulder and there's a little bit of a reason for him to do something. So again, I'm hoping the running comes through with Kyler Murray because that's the thing. You had Sam Darnold and Jared Goff, Russell Wilson, Jordan Love, some of these guys that I have behind him, even Sam Darnold just not being a big runner, right? So I'm hoping this is where Murray gets 50 or 60 yards to get in that. Then you have that free touchdown, basically, and then he gets a couple scores and he passes for 200 yards. So that's what my hope is with Murray. I don't think he has an explosive game necessarily like 303 or something like that, but compiling, that's what he does. Put together all the numbers in the end. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think it might be going off more gut for both of us. But
Yeah.
I will say I have Kyler Murray and Justin Herbert in one league.
Yeah.
And I'm going with Kyler Murray
Yeah, I
this
think
week
that too.
for sure. So other guys that we actually like our quarterback rankings were pretty similar this week overall, but we both also have Jordan Love and Jared Goff inside our top 9. They play against each other on Thursday night. I think both will have high scoring games. They're both really good offenses. If the Lions defense is struggling because of all their injuries and they're allowing a lot of points to the Packers, the Lions are going to be able to put up points too, right? They're at home. They're going to get it done like they always do. So I think Jared Goff, like obviously he can always be sniped by his running backs and they could get all the rushing touchdowns, but there's always a chance for him to throw 3 or 4 touchdowns in a given game. Jordan Love's going to throw a few touchdowns, right? He'll probably also throw a few interceptions, but I think Jordan Love can have a good game in this matchup as well.
Yeah, I think 250-2 is kind of the floor for both these guys in this game because weirdly, they both need the running game to open up their passing game to get them the numbers, but sometimes that can backfire because Josh Jacobs or that duo Montgomery and Gibbs can take the touchdowns. But as long as you get the multiple touchdowns, you're going to be fine with both these guys. I mean, this does have a high total, more than 50 points, so that would be where I would go. Michelle, like the Packers. I do also like the Packers to handle that 3.5, but I also like the over in this game between these two teams. So if the over's there, I think you want to get in all the key ingredients, including the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think I hope this game doesn't disappoint. We don't get a lot of great, fun, exciting Thursday night games, and I'm happy it's in a dome, so weather can't mess with it at all, right? I hope this is just a huge scoring game. It'll be exciting to have these players in your matchup. Sam Darnold has a nice matchup this week against the Falcons. He's been consistent enough that like you don't have to worry about plugging him in. I have him at quarterback 8. You have him at 6. Like he can definitely be played. 2 other guys again that we have similar, both in our top 12. I have Russell Wilson at 9. You have him at 8, and then I have Will Levis at 12. I thought I was going to be super high in Will Levis this week, but you're actually even higher than I am. You have him at 10. Talk about Will Levis. We've talked a lot about Russell Wilson already on previous shows. Like he's a solid play as well.
Yeah, Sam Darnold, I'll just quickly say, I think it's a revenge game for Kirk Cousins, but I think there's going to be also some motivation for Sam Darnold a bit in that game. And they're at home, the Falcons, again, pass defense stinks at this point. So I think he'll be fine in that game. Now, going to Will Levis, I have him that high. I mean, his last 4 games have been very good in fantasy, and they're just letting loose, letting him throw. The Jaguars can't really cover what he's got. Calvin Ridley is going to be motivated in a revenge game for him. And then you've got Chigakonkwo making some plays now. Nick Westbrook-Akine scores every week, so you know you're going to get 1 touchdown at least from that combination. So I do like Will Levis the way he's playing right now, and I think he's playing right now trending toward keeping this job. So I'm excited to see what he can do next year when they invest a little bit more at wide receiver, give him a little bit more help. I think he could be one of those guys that real hot sleeper for next year, and I think he's going to keep building on that. Jacksonville's as good as it gets in terms of a matchup, and it's at home, which is also a bonus to having it in Nashville.
Yeah, this should be a really great game for Will Levis. Of
Mhm.
course, always risky to play Will Levis, but I really like him this week. Now, another guy that's been really risky to play this entire season, it's Caleb Williams, right? He either has huge games or completely does nothing. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of in between. But the last 2 weeks has been great for him. Now, they've come in the second half, right? It's like the first half, you're like, oh my goodness, they started someone who's stinking. And then they come back on like a craziness and he puts up a bunch of points. But would you go with Caleb Williams or in that same exact game, go with Brock Purdy, who Purdy before his shoulder injury was really great for fantasy and consistent, but now we don't know because all we've now seen him in is a terrible weather game. But would you go with Caleb Williams or Brock Purdy?
I think the volume says Caleb Williams. The weapons right now, the way they're being used is Caleb Williams. I think the script says Caleb Williams, right? I think the 49ers, as you mentioned, should be run heavy a little bit to protect Purdy and some of the issues they're having in the passing game. And it's not just having no Brandon Ayuk. It's Juwan Jennings, a struggle with drops. You've had Deebo Samuel disappear. So they need to run the ball. And George Kittle obviously can dominate in that area of the game as well, so you can still get him involved and play off that. So I think it's going to be Kittle and a lot of the running game, but I don't know if you can get that many points from Brock Purdy just doing that. So again, I'm not saying it's going to be as disastrous as the snow in Buffalo game. It's not going to be like that. He should be decent, but I think Caleb Williams has a higher ceiling just because of his weapons and just the fact that they're just letting him loose. They don't care at this point. Matt Eberflus is gone. Thomas Brown is running the show. They need to see the full Caleb experience, and he could be basically Jameis Winston, but more exciting.
I do actually have them ranked back to back this week. I do. I have Brock Purdy at 15, Caleb Williams at 16. Basically saying if you play in a one quarterback league, I don't want to play either of these guys necessarily. I have, and there's even with the buys, like there's so many guys that I have over them that you can grab off waivers and either be Russell Wilson or Tua, who I have as my quarterback 10 this week. Will Levis, who we just talked about, Jameis Winston, who I have at 14, you have at 16, but you still have Winston ahead of Purdy for this week. So I just think there's other options out there instead of going with the risks there. But Caleb Williams, I do think has higher upside in this given matchup. That is it for today's episode. We will get to our wide receivers and tight end rankings on tomorrow's show. I want to thank you all for giving us a listen today. And everydayers, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Give us a like on whatever app you're listening to. We will talk to you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.